Welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you this morning on WJOP-LP Newburyport at FM 96.3 and on Channel 9, and also on Newburyport Community Media's YouTube channel at ncmhub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and I'm delighted this morning to welcome Daniela Morse of the Shared Living Collaborative. She's here to tell us about I would call them visionary programs that she's developed, but I'll let her describe them herself. Daniela, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking time to visit the morning show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Well, I hope that we could start out with your just telling us about the people that the Shared Living Collaborative works with.
Sure. So we are an agency supporting children and adults with disabilities. So we're supporting, people, as young as a few months to people into their 80s, and people that we work and support have various kinds of disabilities. So we support children and adults on the spectrum, Down syndrome, CP, mental health issues, and developmental disabilities. So really a wide range of people we support.
Well, that is a wide range. And what is distinctive about your organization's approach to providing services for the wide range of clients that you just described?
So I think what's distinctive is that we are aiming to provide holistic services. I think one of the challenges with human services or with mental health supports is that they're often very kind of pigeonholed. So you maybe have a psychiatrist, or you maybe have ABA, but really what people benefit from is an array of holistic services that looks at the person as a whole. Mm-hmm. It looks at things like purpose. Everybody has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
People with disabilities often are thought of not having been able to have a purpose, but people have to have a purpose. So we create a sense of purpose. We create a sense of belonging and community and social connections. I think many times we aim to create friendships, particularly for people with disabilities, but social connections is really the most important asset to kind of feel, again, that sense of belonging, safety, value, that people are valued. We look at nutrition, eating good food, eating organic food, eating food that helps with mental health issues. We're looking at exercise. We're looking at, again, the whole kind of gamut, holistic kind of approach. I think that is unique about our agency.
Well, and you name things that all human beings need in order to be fulfilled and to have well-being on the inside. And a lot of times, as you were saying, people tend to think of people with disabilities as outliers somehow on the continuum of humanity. But what you're saying is, let's start with our shared humanity and assume that everybody has similar kinds of needs, and think about creative ways to meet those needs in order to create the greatest amount of health and the strongest kind of well-being, so that we become one community, which I think is such a powerful and visionary way to think about it. So thank you for that description, Danielle. I really appreciate it. I was hoping that you might give us some examples then of using this more holistic approach. What are some of the impacts that you've seen this having in a positive way on the people that you work with?
I think, there are lots of positive kind of things that happen. I think part of our holistic approach also, for example, is that we are teaching marketable vocational skills. Many times people with disabilities are thought of only being able to, bag groceries and clean up after other people.
Yeah.
So, for example, we do vocational training in many different domains. So we have farms where we teach organic farming. We have an organic egg business. We teach horsemanship. We teach, we have a bakery where we clearly teach baking. We have a kitchen, a full commercial kitchen where people learn cooking and prep cooking. We have a carpentry studio where people build beautiful things. We actually have a relationship here with Mill 77 in Newburyport.
Yes.
So they're selling some of our products, and we also do some custom orders. So that is one of the impacts, that people learn marketable vocational skills that then enable them to seek competitive employment and get into careers rather than kind of just jobs, if you so will. And that also at the same time kind of dispels misconceptions that people might have about people with disabilities. So for example, we have a farm in Georgetown with a farm stand, so the people with disabilities will grow the food that Georgetown citizens might eat, right? So it's a different kind of, again, it goes back to value and purpose and perception. I think that another area of impact is that most people who come to us have a history of institutionalization, multiple hospitalizations, and are often in what we call a higher level of care. So they are in more residential settings, and I think with our kind of person-centered approach that we develop a plan for each individual person and the opportunity to live in community-based settings, like we have shared living homes where we match people with disabilities with providers. It could be families, it could be couples, it could be a single roommate, depending on people's preferences and needs, allows people to be successful living in a community-based setting rather than institutional care.
Well, that is just amazing and wonderful. And it sounds, as you describe it, like something I wish everyone had access to as they were growing up. Because I think if everyone did have access to that kind of thoughtful care and the services that you provide, thinking about not just a job but a career, helping people feel like they have purpose and meaning and community, we'd have a much happier, calmer, more peaceful world, Daniela. So, well, you talk about community, and community is powerful, and I think it's something that we all yearn for and sometimes find elusive, because just living around other people doesn't necessarily a community make, or a sustainable or strong community. So tell us how you are able to build strong and sustainable communities. What are the component parts of doing that?
I think the first component parts is really staff who works with us. Because if our staff does not have the feeling that they are part of a community, that they're empowered, that they have psychological, financial safety, that they're valued, they then will not be able to provide the supports to people with disabilities to give them the same feeling. We have a wonderful staff. We have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful staff. So here's a shout out to the staff because they work diligently and hard and tireless. We have almost no staff turnover, which is very, very unusual. So it really depends. So the staff is kind of a foundation, and our providers and foster parents, of course, same thing, right? That they feel that they're supported, that they're valued. I think that, with staff, it's one of the interesting things. The latest hire, I just want to kind of say that the latest hire we had come in was a man who's a retired state trooper. And he came, his name is Mark, and he came and he said, Daniela, I don't need a job. I need a purpose because I'm just sitting at home. I'm not doing anything. And so I think the same thing, as you said, the same thing that we are looking for to create for people with disabilities, we also create for our staff and foster parents. And so that is one of the foundations. So we offer that sense of community to staff as well. So for example, staff is able to access all of our resources. Their children get free horseback riding lessons. They can go to our farm in Georgetown and pick blueberries. They get organic eggs. They get a wellness day every 3 months where they can engage in a wellness activity that the agency pays for, because again, we want to create that same kind of sense. We are a very open community. We invite parents to come in, parents of people we support. We have Gary and Ingrid, for example. So Ingrid is one of the young women we support, and Gary, her dad, comes with her to work 3 days a week. He's at work with Ingrid and is helping out. So it's kind of this welcoming to engage, to make our spaces available. We just got a $100,000 grant from the Cummings Foundation, thank you Cummings Foundation, to create a beautiful kind of sensory trail that we open up to the public. So all of our facilities are open to the public because, again, it creates a kind of, not nuclear, but that extended community, if you so will.
Yeah. Well, again, that's brilliant, because human services is famous for rapid staff turnover. I think because people get burnt out, and sometimes they feel like, am I really having an impact, or just, people can feel like they're just warehousing the people that we're working with. And what you're describing is a win-win-win on every level, because you're creating these very innovative ways to honor the humanity of the clients that you serve, but you're honoring the humanity and taking care of the needs for community and purpose of the staff who work with you as well. So it's very inclusive. And I guess I think of a ripple effect, like a stone in a pond. You start building a community, and then everyone who touches it gets impacted by the spread of the community, and the feeling of inclusiveness and the beauty of what you're doing is just extraordinary and wonderful. I'm not surprised you don't have a problem with turnover. That's really wonderful. And, along the lines, though, we talked on the phone when we were preparing for this interview about a concern that you were expressing about an impending crisis in providing services related to lack of staffing. And I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about what your concerns are, about what you see coming down the pike, and innovative ways to respond to it.
So, about 10 years ago, the Department of Developmental Services started an initiative called at that time Creating Our Commonwealth. So 10 years ago, the department was concerned about demographics that were showing that by the year 2020, we were running out of human service staff to support the human service needs. And, that had nothing to do with COVID. It was even before COVID, it was clear at that point we were not going to have enough staff. And I think COVID has intensified this kind of challenge. And I think there are a couple of different things. I think that, one, we're looking at human services as an industry where people are expected to work for the benefit of doing good. Yeah. And that in the current economy doesn't always work, right? And so COVID, of course, has intensified all this, and I think we are in a significant and severe staffing crisis, where it's not only for people with disabilities, it is children, people like, for example, summer camps for children, daycare services. So we are running our own summer camp for our employees, because otherwise many of the employees wouldn't be able to work in the summer. Yeah. Elder services. You're talking about human services as a whole.
Across the
board.
board.
I think we have to rethink about, first of all, reimbursement rates for staff. If you can go to Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and get $16 or $18 an hour,
who's going to work for 10 or 12?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those challenges. The other thing is that I think we have to think about human services in a broader range. So my last hires were all not coming from the human service field. They were all kind of, from different kinds of angles. So I think we have to focus on recruiting people who might not have a background in human services, but still, of course, have things to offer. I think we need to find innovative opportunities how to stretch the resources that we have. So, for example, we are in the process of developing a coaching app where foster parents or providers have the opportunity to use coaching services provided through the app rather than in person, which is kind of interesting because COVID has made that, something that, makes sense. It wouldn't have made sense like 3 years ago. So it's really kind of innovative things. I think we need to look at senior citizens as a really valued resource as well. So one of my last hires actually was a woman who came in who was in shipping and receiving her entire life and now finds herself in the position that she has to work part-time because of the cost of living increases. So I think senior citizens have a lot to offer. So we just have to, I think, expand the way we're thinking and recruiting and stretching resources.
Yeah, we have to break through the compartments, I think, that we're accustomed to applying to what a qualification means, who's an appropriate candidate to do this kind of work, to kind of explode the boundaries. And when you explode the boundaries, then you can think creatively and make connections. And that's a theme that comes through as you talk. The innovation, the creativity, and the getting rid of the boundaries, and including more and more people as part of the community of care. Very much so. And the other thing we started doing is we're not hiring for particular jobs. We have people come in and say, spend time with us, let us know where you fit, and let us know what you can contribute. So many times people ask me, like, Daniela, did you think all this out, right? It's like, no, I'm not smart enough for that. But the way shared living has developed is
people come with their ideas to us. Like we have a staff, his name is Chris Plumley. He's a wonderful guy from England. And he is a vocational staff. He works with the goats and a couple of our folks, but he's also a ballroom dancing teacher. So Chris actually came with the idea and saying, can I do lessons for people, right? And we started this dancing program and very, quickly found out it's a wonderful tool for social skills development, right?
Oh, I'll bet,
Because
yeah.
you have to be in sync with somebody, you have to have eye contact. If you do ballroom, you have to appropriately touch somebody. So it's a great kind of normalized way of learning social skills, which is much more effective than sitting in a group with 10 people with social skills issues and talking about social skills. It does not go well.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that, has worked really well for us, that people come and they bring ideas.
Oh, that's just such a wonderful idea. Plus, dancing, music, first of all, it's fun.
It is fun.
And fun, oxytocin, good brain chemicals, it's all good. And it is good for your brain because you have to coordinate and learn steps, and you have to develop the synchronous movements with other people as you learn them. So that's wonderful. And that's because somebody came to you and suggested it because it was part of his background. So it's a great example of the creative way that you're approaching staffing as well. So, and who knows what other people will bring or are bringing.
Always bring. So another hire, just talking about that, was actually a saddle fitter who, whose business struggled a little bit because of COVID. And he is, offering to make, he just started actually, and he offered to do a leather making class, like where, individuals can make their own belts or purses. So that's kind of what is so amazing. And what it also does is it validates and empowers, the staff.
Yeah.
And, I think that is, that in itself again,
Absolutely.
empowers our folks with disability and creates a rich program.
Right. It honors their talents and their strengths and gives them a creative and a very deeply meaningful way to use those skills and talents in a way they probably haven't before in their life. So it keeps them going and keeps them strong. And again, the theme here is it strengthens the community and keeps expanding it. So that's great. Well, I know, Daniela, from conversations that we had preparing for this interview, that you are a strong advocate for diminishing or getting rid of, if possible, the medicalization or the pathologizing of disabilities in favor of a more, you've used the word holistic before, but in favor of a more holistic and positive way about thinking about and describing people's challenges in life. So I was hoping that you could talk to us a little bit more about what you see as the damage done when disabilities are pathologized or medicalized, and what you see as the reasons for championing everything you've been talking about, the more holistic, more positive approaches.
So I think you asked me earlier, about farms, right? What is with farms and how we came about farms? And I told you it was kind of almost accidental that we originally, when we started, we were only residential services, and then we had a lot of young people suspended in our office, and we said, okay, why don't we start a day program? And we rented a farm. And what we found by renting this farm for 3 days, three and a half days, and our people attending, is that their behaviors and challenges, just by being in fresh air, engaging in heavy proprioceptive activity, having purpose, were kind of diminishing. They were less angry, they were less anxious, and there was nothing else that changed, just the 3.5 days there. So we kind of found that nature is cheaper than therapy, and meaningful activities, fresh air, really, provides a healthy connection to Earth, a healthy connection to each other that, diminishes the need for medication. Then, we kind of thought about, so for example, if somebody has sensory issues, a lot of people with disabilities have sensory issues, a lot of people without disabilities have sensory issues too, they just don't know it necessarily. So that, for example, many people have to go to OTs to kind of work on their sensory kind of challenges. And we found that farm is actually a great place to kind of address sensory issues in just a more normalized setting. So rather than going to a strip mall where, say, well, another thing I have to go to, another therapist, we just create the workflow at the farms to meet people's sensory needs. It's a very kind of normalized way of addressing that. That is, in a non-pathologizing way.
Yeah.
So, for example, most of our folks start with heavy proprioceptive activity in the morning because it's grounding, like water buckets, muck buckets, just things that are really kind of grounding and set the tone for the day without even knowing that it's an activity that addresses their sensory issues, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think the other thing is that we need to afford people with disabilities the opportunity to engage in the same activities all of us do to address our mental health challenges. So, for example, aerobic exercises, right? All of our folks have a free membership to a gym because it's proven that if you exercise aerobically 3 times a week for 40 minutes is as effective as an antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication. Those are some of the things that we have to look at. I think because if we are depressed and we go to our doctor and say we're depressed, they say, well, go and exercise, figure something out.
Right.
If a person with disability goes, they're much more likely to get an antidepressant.
Right.
And antidepressants don't do anything. They're numb people, but they don't do anything. And it doesn't address the underlying causes for it. So I think we have to look at that. I think it is easier for our society to spend $5,000 on antipsychotics than it is to pay for a massage that makes people grounded, touched, well. So it's kind of, I think there needs to be a shift in really looking at, what medicalizing disability costs and what it does to people.
It would be a much more effective and coherent system to be able to help somebody work out basically lifestyle changes, exercise, sensory kind of experiences on a farm, a balance of exercise from the morning where you do your heavy lifting to other kinds of things later on the day. Much less expensive and just much more coherent than just giving somebody a prescription for a pill. And then, it doesn't change who they are, how they live, basically. And sometimes, as you say, can just numb them out. And that can exacerbate, I think, in many cases, hopelessness. And anyway, so it just makes more sense.
Very much so. It's the same thing with food, right? It's so proven that preservatives and add-ons and coloring and all the kind of stuff that goes into bad food has such a negative impact on people's well-being. Anything from attention issues to, higher arousal levels to, all different kinds of things, particularly for people on the spectrum where there's a very clear kind of gut-brain connection. And again, we are willing as a society to pay a ton of money for hospitalizations and medications, but we're not willing to substitute good food or give people enough money that they can afford to buy good food, and food, again, is becoming a class issue where people, only people who have a decent income can buy organic food.
That's right, yeah. So it's another kind of dietary inequality, to coin a phrase. Absolutely.
That's a great term, dietary inequality. I remember that. That's great.
Well, Daniela, your organization just sounds like a triumph of common sense and wisdom and creativity over the opposite of those things. So how can people become involved with the collaborative? And what do you hear from people who do volunteer or work with you about the benefits that they derive? You talked about the state trooper already, but I'm sure you probably have other things that people say. So how can people get involved?
So, I think one of our challenges has been that we have grown very quickly. We're a young agency. We were founded in 2007. And we, at this point, are a bit more than $50 million in revenue. So we have grown very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And, the purpose of this agency is not to grow. One of the downfalls of human service agencies is that they grow too quickly. Mm-hmm. And so we're really trying to, kind of be mindful that we are true to our mission and provide the services that we are set out to do and not lose that by becoming too big.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you've noticed, we don't even have a website because we wouldn't be able to sustain the traffic. So people usually find us. So if somebody wants to get involved, if people would like to come to volunteer, to best way is to call our office and just talk to us, and we figure out what we can do.
And would you like to give that number?
Sure. Our office number is 978-346-8802.
Excellent.
I do have to take one moment and say hi to a special person. Can
Please
I do
do.
that? So this goes to Leanne. Leanne, I told you I would say hi to you. Leanne is really kind of was the inspiration for me to start this agency. Leanne and my husband and my kids and I have been living together for 25 years.
Wow.
Leanne is in a wheelchair, and she is one of the most amazing, brave, wonderful, loving people I've ever met in my life. So Leanne, this goes to you. Thank you for inspiring me to start this agency.
Yes, thank you, Leanne. Big shout out to Leanne, and thank you, because clearly, Leanne, so many people have benefited and continue to benefit from your prompting of this agency and the work that Daniela and everybody at Shared Living Collaborative are doing. Daniela, I can't thank you. A shout out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for just it really is a visionary program that you do. And I just hope, I know that you're not eager to grow, but I hope that others will hear and learn about it and start their own collaboratives, because it just is, it's just one of the best ideas I've ever come across.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I just love what you're doing and the way that you honor everybody's humanity and create happy people who are filled with well-being and healthy food. And thank you also just for taking time to come visit the morning show and to teach us about the Shared Living Collaborative. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you're going to come and visit us soon.
I will, absolutely. All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. You take care now. Bye-bye.